I'm Syed Mashood Rizvi, Director of British Council for Sindh and Balochistan, and we just at the last leg of the Karachi Literature Festival number 3. Normally, organizations like the British Council, we have what we call this tedious activity of customers' feedback. For an event this big, it's almost impossible. So I will rely on the intensity and the level of applause that I'm expecting from the crowd right now, just for me to wake you up, as well as to see as to how you felt. So that is just about moderate feedback. So, so I'll put in my feedback form that the people were tired and exhausted and sick of me as well, standing here all the time. So thank you, nevertheless. We will start the concluding ceremony, and I request our Director of Programs, Martin Fryer. Martin Fryer has been an inspiration behind the development of arts program in Pakistan. And the arts program means that new work, new audience. Arts program means Karachi Literature Festival. Art program of the British Council would mean, inshallah, a lot of new things happening in Pakistan, courtesy the British Council and the support coming from UK. He is also the Director of Programs for every initiative of the British Council in Pakistan. And as I said, that he has been a leader, he has been a big support to the design, the architect, and the overall planning and management of this particular Karachi Literature Festival. Please welcome Martin Fryer.
Thank you very much, Mash. I wonder whether Mash's words might have something to do with the fact that I am his boss. No, I take them in the spirit in which I'm sure they're intended. These 2 days are the result of an enormous amount of planning, thought, and hard work. And although one normally starts with a discourse about the event itself, I want to start with thanking the behind-the-scenes team that have made this possible. So could we have a big round of applause for all of the people who've made this happen, the volunteers, our staff at the OUP, our staff at the British Council, and our helpers here at the hotel. So a big thank you to all of them. But this is really a festival about the audience, and this is what I've learned. This is my second year, and although we can't really count the number of people who attended over these 48 hours, the feeling is that it's a considerable number greater than last year. The faces I saw today were different, so either word of mouth or the excellent support we've had from the media brought in new people to experience an incredible array, a real feast of writing, an opportunity to meet writers, to debate issues, to express views in what I feel is a safe place, somewhere where if you want to disagree with a writer, if you want to disagree with somebody from the media, an academic, you can do so. And in fact, I find that very moving, that this festival has turned into something where I understand people do feel that they can express themselves freely. The range of topics has been extraordinary, everything from education to language to fiction, politics, economics. It's a real feast, as I say. The British Council, as Mashood has mentioned, is here in Pakistan to work in a wide range of programs, and I've mentioned education as being one of the topics. That's a central platform for us. And education, of course, is impossible without literacy. So the very fact that this celebrates excellence, of course, in writing, we do need to remember, I think as Dr. Marilyn Wyatt said at the opening, the challenge that we all have as people who are lucky enough to be literate, to be able to enjoy what we read. We do have a huge job to do in the education field, and I'm proud that the British Council plays a very small, but I hope significant part in that in Pakistan. So, it's over, but it's not over. I hope that you will return next year. I hope that we at the British Council will be invited to bring authors of the stature of those we've been able to bring this year, and I would like to pay my personal thanks to Hanif Qureshi, who we'll hear in a minute, to Anatol Levin, and to William Dalrymple for being the forces that they are. I don't think William Dalrymple went to sleep in Pakistan. I'm not joking. He arrived on a plane, was here for 24 hours, and left on a plane without, I think, hitting the bed. It's a great privilege that we have been invited by OUP to be part of this great event. So my last vote of thanks, as always, are to Amina Saeed and Asif Faruqi. Thank you.
Thank you, boss. Just to, which I shouldn't do, just to prove the boss wrong, I think somebody who we admire deeply, and I think somebody who's actually translated this festival and has protected this festival from becoming what Asif Bhai the other day said, a tamasha, but a very, very powerful intellectual space, a space which is very rare in a country like Pakistan today, and we are hoping that it will only have a very, very profound impact on other spaces like that. I now request Amina Saeed to please come and conclude the ceremony.
Thank you, Mashood. And thank you, Martin and the British Council, for your tremendous support. And as I had said earlier, this could not have happened without the support given by the British Council in every way from day one. And especially this year when they got 3 wonderful authors to take part. And I think they really added so much value to the festival. So thank you to the British Council and the entire team at the British Council in Karachi and in Lahore. I hope that the 2 days of the Karachi Literature Festival have been as rewarding for all of you as they have been for us. And the whole event was planned with the objective of bringing intellectual enrichment and enjoyment to the people of Karachi, for promoting reading among adults and children, projecting new writers, and encouraging the talent for writing. And I hope, as this year and last year, I hope that your enthusiasm will continue to grow. Because it is really your participation and your presence here for 2 days, giving up your weekend, and for some people who have actually traveled to Karachi to attend this, I would like to say thank you. I hope, I was delighted this year to see so many students also lining up for the programs. And I think it is for this reason that we keep the entrance free and open for all. And I know that I have been to other festivals where there is quite a lot of charge, but it is our intention and our desire to keep this absolutely free so that we can keep it open for people from all walks of life. I have just discussed this with Martin and Asif Faruqi. And for next year, we just want to announce that we are planning to have the Karachi Literature Festival 2013, inshallah, in the last week of February. So please mark your diaries. We'll announce a date shortly. And again, in discussion with Asif Farooqi and Martin Fryer, we also feel that next year we should extend it to 3 days. So we'll have it on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I hope that those of you who have missed some sessions, you can see them later on YouTube. They have all been recorded and they will all be available through the YouTube. And the British Council this year actually organized live streaming of some of the sessions. And I got text messages from people in Canada. Somebody sent me a text message that, your head is in the way of the camera, kindly move. So it was being watched in Canada, some of the sessions, live. I would like to thank our authors and our moderators who have come literally from all over the world. They have come from the UK, the US, France, Germany, India, Bangladesh. So thank you for visiting Karachi and for talking to us, because I feel it is only through, the Karachi Literature Festival is all about expression. And this is, I think, the most important part of it, that whoever comes here is free to say whatever they want. There will be a lot of disagreements, and there were debates and disagreements, and I think this is the spirit of the festival, and this is something that we hope to keep alive. I would like to thank the media for their wonderful coverage of the festival. They were here in large numbers. So thank you to the media, and you must have noticed that the session on Media Speak was absolutely packed. People were standing outside. Senior editors of newspapers were standing outside because there was just not even standing room inside. A big thank you to Asif Farooqi, to Mashood Rizvi, to Martin Fryer for the tremendous support in every way. And I think we make a wonderful team, and I hope that we can continue to work together. I would like to thank my wonderful team at Oxford University Press, Rahila Bakai, Madhiya Hanfi, Zahra Naseem, Muniza Ali, Fatma Ilyas. They have worked tirelessly, so thank you, all of you. And Shiraz Heather, and all our editors who helped us with this. I would like to thank our sponsors, the British Council, the US Embassy, the US Consulate in Karachi, the Consulate General of the Federal Republic of Germany, the Goethe Institute, the French Embassy in Islamabad, the French Consulate in Karachi, Alliance Française in Karachi, Infaq Foundation, Tapal Chai, Norris, Aquavida, and the University of Texas in Austin. But most of all, I would like to thank you, the audience, for being with us today. And I hope, and I think your enthusiasm and your presence is the greatest sign of our success. So thank you, and Assalamu Alaikum.
Thank you, Amina. It was very generous. Thanks so much. As Amina was speaking, our wonderful volunteers actually brought this quite a heavy piece, which looks like a study table. I'm sure it is not. So I request all of them to please come on stage, and I request all of you to please give them a very big round of applause for all that they have been doing. Yes, 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 more of that actually. This is the closing ceremony. We need to jazz it up a bit. Please tell those who are not here that we are very grateful to all of you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. अब तस्वीर बनने वाली है. Thank you. अब मैं दरख्वास्त करूंगा जिनको मैं कहता हूँ वन मैन आर्मी ऑफ लिटरेचर, जिनको almost single-handedly who leads the Urdu and now the regional languages component of the Karachi Literature Festival. Very, very respected colleague, just like an elder brother to me. Elder, he may mind, but nevertheless, let me emphasize on that continually. Asif Farooqi Saab.
Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen, Khawateen o Hazrat. Mashood, I certainly do not mind the elder. As it is, I find this the most difficult part of the program, the concluding ceremony, because I get a lump in my throat that 2 days of the intense discussions, reading, seminars, packed rooms, book launches, what have you, they're about to come to an end. And not to forget the very interesting book which Maniza Naqvi has put together, Festival, which brings in together a lot of interesting embers or thoughts from writers. So many of those embers will keep on, they will remain alight, they will keep on shedding their wonderful luminous presence, will be known. The only complaint I have and a suggestion to Martin is that there's a very wonderful British device, and maybe the British Council can invest in that for the future. And this is something which one of the children who read Harry Potter told me about, and this is the time turner which goes tick-tock, and you keep turning back the clock by 1 hour. 1 hour, 1 session. So please make sure that we have more of these for the next session. आखिर में मुझे सिर्फ ऐसे मौक़ों पर अल्फ लैला की कहानी याद आती है. हम सबको याद ही होगा कि वो शहरज़ाद जब कोई अच्छा क़िस्सा सुनाती थी तो वो कहती थी कि ये क़िस्सा तो कुछ नहीं, जो अगला क़िस्सा मुझे सुनाना है वो इससे भी ज़्यादा अच्छा है. तो अगर बादशाह ने और हुकूमत ने मुझे एक दिन और जीता रहने दिया तो अगली सुबह और अगली रात का जो क़िस्सा होगा उसका तो जवाब ही नहीं. और ज़ाहिर है कि उसको ये मौका मिलता था. तो अल्फ लैला की इस रिवायत की तरह अल्फ लैला के शहर में मैं तो अभी से अगले KLF 4 के बारे में सोच रहा हूँ. जिन मुसन्निफ़ों, जिन अदीबों और जिन मौज़ूआत पर हमें बात करनी है, क्यों ना उनकी अभी से फ़हरिस्त बनाना शुरू करें. कहीं ऐसा ना हो कि अगले साल मुझे भी कमरे में जगह ना मिले. आप सबका बहुत शुक्रिया.
Thank you so much, Asif Bhai, and you'll be delighted to know that the whale was actually on the second page and the whole page was for the Karachi Literature Festival today. It is a bigger whale than the actual whale now for Karachi. Now I would like to request Susie, our Director Literature, who's arrived all the way from London, who was the person who was met by Amina after her visit to Jaipur. Susie, as we mentioned, that unfortunately couldn't make it for the first two, but she has been always there and a very, very strong advocate, even when there were talks of security concerns and so on and so forth. She's the one that we have heavily relied on, and she actually had the dream of this happening in Pakistan, which with the help of Amina, with Asif, it came true. And we have had the third one. So I request Susie to come and also to introduce our keynote speaker, and she will invite Hanif Qureshi. Thank you, please.
Thanks very much, Mash. It's a real pleasure to be here, and thanks for the introduction. I've had the most fantastic 2 days. If you look at your programs, you'll see that what is coming up now is a half-hour keynote speech by Hanif Qureshi to close this third Karachi Literature Festival. I want to tell you an anecdote. I was in Berlin 2 weeks ago, and I was at a conference, and I was listening to the most fantastic writers from Britain whom we'd taken to Germany. And it was absolutely spellbinding. And I got to the end of the second day, and I looked at my program, and it said closing speech by Susie Nicklin, half an hour. And I obviously hadn't written it before I left for Germany, because that would have been pointless, because I wouldn't have known what I wanted to say. But also I'd been so completely captivated by the talks that I hadn't written it during the conference either. So you can actually see it on YouTube, and you'll see that what I'm doing is on my iPad reading from all the tweets I sent throughout the conference. That's the one thing. And secondly, it only lasted 10 minutes. So what Hanif and I have been talking about and what we've decided to do is that he's going to talk about his impressions and what he's found here in Pakistan at the Karachi Literature Festival. And we think that way it'll be fresher and more vibrant for you because it's just literally the way that the impressions that he's been forming over the last couple of days. One of the things that we have all, I would say, observed has been the quality of the debate that's taken place here. Fiery, passionate, emotional, lots and lots of different points of view being expressed. But we thought it would be appropriate to conclude with the voice of the writer, and particularly a writer who predominantly is writing in the genres of fiction and screenplays, the imaginative writer. So, Hanif, I was wondering if you could tell us what you think of the role of the writer is, actually, the imaginative writer in a society like ours today.
I have to say that it's been a fantastic experience for me to come to this festival. I attend a lot of festivals, but I have to say that this one, the sense of urgency and the desire of people to speak about literature, about politics, about their country in relation to other people's countries, has been particularly urgent and necessary here, and I felt a real buzz and a real excitement in this place. And if I wonder, as all writers do every day when they get up and sit at their desk, if I wonder what the hell we're doing this for, when you actually come to a festival like this and meet readers and meet other writers, you get a real sense that writing is important, and that the writer matters, because we're speaking imaginatively about our world. Everybody knows in this room, every single person knows in this room that politicians are liars and dishonest and are not to be trusted. We all know that the media is often censored and it's difficult to speak. But one place where you might find a little bit of truth from time to time, the one place where now and again you might find someone who actually speaks from the heart, might be in a story. And in a story, in that transaction between the reader and the writer, there is some real, at least for some time, real honesty. And it seems to me that obviously there are some writers who only write personally for a small audience. There are other writers who are highly politicized. There are other writers like Samuel Beckett who just don't care. And other writers like Kafka who are more, let's say, obscure. But in a highly politicized country like Pakistan, it seems to me that the new writing that is emerging is not only addressing a contemporary audience, but will create new writers. That the 4 or 5 writers who are internationally famous in Pakistan now, I hope and believe, will feed back into the society words that will inspire other young people in the colleges, schools and universities to start speaking, to tell their own stories. You think of Mohsen Hamid's Reluctant Fundamentalist, a highly politicized contemporary novel about which people argue all the time. You think of The Case of Exploding Mangoes by Muhammad Hanif. These are really important writers. And what you hope is that these writers will serve as examples to other young writers. If a culture has any value, it's not a museum, it's not in an old book. A culture is only of value if it's alive, and it's only alive if young people are participating in it. And young people only participate in a culture if they can see that other people are making the future. So I really hope that a festival like this will start the ball rolling in terms of culture in this place, and that other writers will soon emerge.
Do you really think, though, that fiction can actually shape a society? I mean, can creative writing actually change the way that humans behave, the way that communities behave?
Well, you talk all the time, Susie. Susie talks to me all the time about Dickens, and I'm very happy to be talked to about Dickens. And Dickens is a writer who we still read today, obviously. And he's very, very entertaining. At the same time, we know that when Dickens was writing, he was writing about stuff that people didn't know about that was going on in their country, around the corner. So a writer may be contemporary, and a writer then may be read in 100 years' time. But one of the things that a writer does is to tell you what's going on in your neighborhood. He tells you what's going on in your street. He tells you what your politicians are doing. So he describes the reality. You then think about that reality, you begin to speak about it to your neighbors, and then you have some sort of political, cultural society going. I think it's that that's important, that the writer, as it were, begins the argument. The writer says, why don't we think about this? Why don't we look at that? And then people say, that's a terrible book, I didn't like that book, but they're talking about it, they're arguing, they're addressing it, and they're thinking about ways in which these issues are discussed. So I think a writer might not directly address a political issue, but a writer is a nuisance, as you will see from the famous case of Salman Rushdie. A writer is a person who annoys you profoundly. That annoyance, that debate, those signifiers are profoundly important in society, and without that, there's nothing going on.
So I suppose that's the way that a lot of us absorb our writing, is through reading. And I mean, this has been, hasn't it, the month of festivals, and a month of a lot of debate about festivals as well. What do you think the place is of the literary festival in the contemporary world? Just to put this in context, in Britain we have about 350 literary festivals now. So it's a really important part of our everyday lives, and for writers it's very important. But what do you think, Hanif? Is there a role?
My cousin Maheen, who's sitting over there, says we need a festival in Karachi every week. She says we need a place to go where people can talk. We need a place where people can meet. We need to get together to discuss how terrible the politicians are, how corrupt they are, and what they're doing. And we need really seriously to think about this stuff. A festival might be a place where people begin to talk about these things. But this is only the beginning. Other people have to organize, they have to meet in their houses, they have to meet to discuss what matters to them. That's what a festival does.
And I know that in this country, in this society, and in the language, for example, a language like Urdu or a language like Arabic or Persian, poetry is a particularly important art form, isn't it? What do you think the role of poetry is in a festival like this?
Well, one of the things that goes on at a festival is that the writers meet, they get together. Writers always meet and they complain and they talk about money. But you also get a real sense of what other people are doing. No writer exists on his or her own. It comes out of a culture. It comes out of other writers, of disagreeing with them. Writers don't necessarily have to meet all the time, but you have to get a sense of what other people are doing. I really hated that book, I really love that book, I like that, and so on. So that sense of a living culture, of writers working together, of poets and meeting, knowing one another, enjoying each other's work, and then being joined by other young people, is really how a culture develops. As I said earlier, the most important thing is that a culture is alive, that we're not just observing it, we're not just spectators. It's alive because people are participating in it. They're making dance, they're making poetry, they're making music, they're writing books, they're writing plays, and they're thinking about the most important questions, which are always, how should we live? Who do we want to be? And what do we hope for?
Would you say you've been changed by coming here to this festival? Has it altered things within you?
I've been very impressed by people's desire to speak. When you say you're going to Pakistan, people look at you with horror as though you're going to the worst place in the world. When you actually come here, people seem so hopeful. They want to argue, they want to discuss, they want to change. And throughout the Arab world, people are arguing, they're fighting, they're debating tonight. And there's no reason why the same thing shouldn't happen in this country.
I think that Amitav Ghosh wrote a piece recently which was quite widely recirculated about the fact that he prefers not to go to festivals, that he'd rather have the reader to analyse his works, you know, in the privacy of their head. Do you think there's a support for that point of view? Would you support that?
Writing is a private experience, and reading is a private experience. You sit down in your room with your book, and something happens in your head between you and the writer that is private. At the same time, if we're going to have a living culture, we've got to meet together like this in order to keep it alive.
One of the points that I think has come up a couple of times actually during this festival has been the response of the fiction writers to 9/11 and the speed or otherwise with which people incorporated such a major world event into their fiction. How do you feel about that? I mean, do you feel that that's something that matters to you and matters to the writers that you know?
What writers do is to make diversity. The only interesting cultures are diverse cultures, cultures where people are rather arguing rather than killing each other, a culture in which there are more and more ideas about how we should live that are going around all the time. A writer might start that spark, but it's really in conversation between ordinary people that real political discussion takes place. And this has to go on all the time. And it is, in fact, a form of resistance to the status quo. So when I think of an imaginative writer, I think of diversity, because I think of the writer putting more ideas, more life, more weirdness, more alternative shapes into the whole system.
I wonder if we could talk a bit about the place of humour, because your writing is so humorous and always sparks, ripples of laughter which turn into gales at various points in your reading. And I wasn't able to attend it, but I know that the session on satire here this afternoon has triggered a huge response from people. What do you think about the role of humour, both in the written word, but also in performing at festivals when you're reading?
Dictators don't like jokes. There isn't a dictator in the world who's got a sense of humour. I think one of the things that does attack authoritarianism and totalitarianism is humour, is satire. And people in Karachi have a very, very good sense of humour, and they have a real cynicism about politics. And that really encourages me when I come here.
Something else that we were talking about earlier, which came up in an event this morning, which was about the Arab Spring, which I thought was a very good point, was about how people identify with the rulers of their country and what the important things are that matter, and what you may be able to let go of, maybe when it comes to deciding your own governance. And how important do you think the place is of reading in a society to be able to make that decision?
I think identification is a very good thing to say. When I was a young man, I worshipped particularly an American writer, James Baldwin, a black American Negro writer. And there I was, a kid sitting in the suburbs in Bromley, worshipping this writer and thinking he speaks for me. Sometimes young people come up to me and they say they saw my beautiful laundrette or read one of my books, and it meant something. I find it both embarrassing and I'm very, very moved, because we work alone. You write a book and you have no idea who's going to read it or if anybody will read it at all. And then one kid jumps up and says, your book meant something to me. So I think that's why literature matters. That's why it's important, because writers are points of identification for young people.
Do you think there's a sense of catharsis for people coming to festivals like this? Do you think it creates an outlet for feelings which are hard to express in other contexts?
My cousin said to me, what we need is debate. What we need is to be able to meet. What we need is to have more festivals. We have occasions when writers can present their own ideas, but it's what goes on in the audience, actually, what people say to each other afterwards, when they meet for tea, when they meet in the cafes, when they meet at each other's houses. It's those liaisons that are as important as the writer. It's what comes out of the book, the meaning of the book in the wider world, that is as important as the writer's position itself.
And another thing that came up earlier this morning on a session on literary criticism, which I thought was very apposite, was about the importance of reintegrating contemporary texts back into the curriculum. I think it's absolutely fair to say in the UK that Hanif is very, very widely read and studied on curricula, and it has created a new generation of writers who have felt completely empowered and inspired by somebody like Hanif being on the curriculum. And you think that's important as well?
Writing changes all the time. One writer, then there's 10 years, and there's another writer, there's another writer. That writing has to go back. It has to be fed back into the society, so that kids who are 13, 14, 15 years old can start to think about the contemporary world. And you only do that through writing in the universities, through writing in the colleges, and particularly writing in the schools. And you do that through teaching. So writers don't exist alone. We need to have teachers. We need to have people who are talking about the issues and the ideas in our books. So then writing becomes a form of education.
Thank you. And then just to take the subject back to the readers, I think, how about the audience? Do you think events like this change our audiences?
I think people in this audience will go away and they'll think, they'll talk, they'll read other people's books, and I think there'll be all sorts of ripples. And I think this festival will get bigger and bigger, and more people will come. And I think it'll become a very, very significant event. I think it'll go on at least every year, I think. It'll get bigger, and I think it'll become more significant. So what I've seen here has been absolutely fantastic and inspiring, and I take a real sense of love and positivity from this festival.
I'm not sure I can really top that, actually. I think that's a beautiful note on which to finish. Unless
Well,
you
I'd
wanted
like to say
more.
it's fantastic that I've been invited back here. What a great honour it is. And I wish you all the best with other festivals for the future. Thank you.